Hi guys, it's Sascha here from New Earth Organics and Vital Essence, coming at you from Calgary as I record this tonight for your winter class. Some of you might know who I am because I have been up to Pure Earth Organics to do some classes in person once upon a time, and I look forward to the days of doing that again. I miss that group dynamic and just seeing everybody's faces and that. So anyways, today we're going to go into the topic of winter. So what we're going to talk about today, what I'm going to talk about today is basically just a quick overview from the traditional Chinese medicine perspective of winter and the associated organ systems, maybe some lifestyle habits that you need to, or you may want to take into account and change and alter. And then also looking into the tonic herbs and food and eating for the winter as well. In the traditional medicines, they have traditions of adjusting food, adjusting lifestyle, adjusting sleep habits for the season. They live in tune with the season, in tune with nature, in tune with the changing of the light and dark cycles. And in the West, we don't do that so much, right? We just go, go, go. Every day is the same kind of day. We have the same kind of schedule, 365 days a year with an occasional break here and there, but then we get right back at it. We don't really pay attention to the kinds of food we're eating and change that. We don't take a look at what we're supplementing with and change that. We don't even adjust our lifestyles for that. And I would like to encourage you to look at your life to see if you are living in tune, because I think what happens often is that our ego gets in the way and we think we should be doing, going, right? Because that's Western society. That's what we do. We wear this stress as a badge of honor and that we're so busy, but who is that serving really? So for me, for example, winter signifies knitting. I was just doing some knitting. I've actually knit these things here, but I'm about to knit a new shawl. So for me, knitting is a really joyful thing for me to do in the winter. It's very meditative for me. It's creative. I wear it. I gift it. It's very cozy. Winter is a cozy, cozy time. So we have to look at that and look to see how we're living in the wintertime, because the more we stray from what traditional living used to look like, the more impaired we become in our emotional health, in our mental health, in our physical health, because our circadian rhythms really get disrupted. And also, I think it disconnects us a lot from our own inner guidance and our own creative power and our passions, because we get so wrapped up in our day-to-day and we don't go through cycles of contemplating and going within and then rebirthing or birthing and letting go what doesn't serve us in the fall and contemplating in the winter and birthing that in the spring and then really fulfilling that in the summer and then starting all over again. Right. So I think that's something that I'd like to encourage you to take a look at in your life and see where you can slow down, see where you can change, see what you can let go of. But in the wintertime, it's that time to go within. And as we record this is the last day of February. So we are getting very, very close to the end of winter. But these things can still be applied into your life, and it's something to consider for next year. But in a time, and unless you're literally living under a rock in 2022, you know that this world has drastically changed in the last 2 years. And this is the opportune time to build resilience. This is the opportune time to become more robust and more able to adapt. And resilience isn't a word that I would use to describe a lot of people these days. It's not. People are very sensitive. They've been beaten down. They're going through all sorts of problems, whether it be job losses or fighting with their relatives and families, even within their own homes, losing friends, just being on very, very opposing sides of different issues. And as the world continues to divide us, the weaker we're going to become. So I think now to pay attention to your own resilience and cleaning up your own house is probably one of the most important and impactful things you can do for yourselves and the world. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox now and let me share my screen and we will get into it. So here we go. Oh, let's go here. And we'll play. So living in harmony with winter. So if you've attended any of the classes I've done before, you know that I'm a big proponent with living in harmony with the seasons. And that's really what is done in the traditional medicines. And so I encourage you, like I said, to do that. I am the educator for New Earth Organics. If you have any questions, I know Rebecca, she's a light of intelligence and skill and knowledge, and I'm sure she can answer all your questions. But if you want to contact me, I am Sascha. There's my name there, Sascha, Sascha at newearthorganics.com. I forgot to put that on the last slide. So if you want to contact me, please do. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So let's talk about what winter is from the traditional Chinese medicine perspective. So this is coming from the 5-element theory of Chinese medicine. And basically everything in the natural world can be divided into these 5 elements, which is a seasonal approach. But summer is divided into the early summer and later summer to give us 5 elements. So this is the winter. So obviously the season is the winter. The organ on the clock are the kidneys and also the adrenals that sit on top of the kidneys. So this is a really important time to build the kidney essence, which we will learn is the seat of our resilience and our ability to adapt and age gracefully and not age too soon. It stores, in essence, referred to as Jing, which is basically the battery of our lives. And the more we go, and the less attention we give to ourselves and the less attention we give to replenishing and really rejuvenating ourselves, the more Jing we deplete, the more quickly we will age and the more uncomfortable we will be while we're aging. So the paired organ is the bladder. And the element is the water. So obviously the bladder and the kidneys, they play a large role in regulating the fluids in the body. And that fluid is mainly its water. The color is black. So we're going to talk about some black foods, black herbs that are going to support that and help build that Jing essence. The emotion is fear. So it can work 2 ways. If you have weakened kidneys, then you may tend to be more fearful, or if you've had a lot of instances of fear in your life, you can be really wearing down your Jing and affecting the kidney health. So that's something to look in. There's an emotion for every element as well. But from the positive perspective, or from the strengthened perspective, there's willpower and there's courage, right? When the kidneys are strong, when the Jing is strong and topped up, and we've really charged those batteries. The sense organ is the ears. So from a Chinese medicine perspective, if you're having trouble hearing, they will often look to the kidneys and take a look what's happening there and strengthen the kidneys to improve the hearing. And so for example, in the spring, which will be the next one, obviously, then we've got liver season, and that's associated with the eyes. So whenever somebody's poor or has some issues with hearing, then that's something to look at for sure. The sense organ of the ears. So let's look from a Western perspective, the function of the kidney. So we've got fluid balance, the role in the regulation of pH and mineral balance, blood pressure regulation, converting vitamin D to its active form. So that's a really important function of the kidneys. And if you don't have the right nutrients available, or if you have kidney damage, and other things can contribute to the conversion of vitamin D to its active form, then you're going to have a lot of issues, because we know that vitamin D in the body is a very, very, very important, pretty much hormone that affects many things, from your mental health to your physical health to your immune health. Really, really important. Secretion of EPO for red blood cell product in the marrow. So that's erythropoietin. So that's production of the new red blood cells. So let's look at it from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective. It's the storage of Jing. Again, so quickly, if you haven't heard this quick little spiel about the 3 treasures, the 3 treasures are Qi, which most people have heard of, Jing, and Shen. So Qi, if you think of a candle, oh, I should have grabbed one. Anyways, if you think of a candle, you've got the candle, the physical candle itself. You've got the wax, you've got the wick. You've got the light as well. So when you look at Qi, you're looking at the flame itself. You're looking at that energy. So that's that energy that we use day to day. And then you've got the actual physical candle that will burn out eventually. It will run out. It will disappear. So, but if you care for it, if you trim that wick, if you curl in the wax, that candle is going to serve you for a lot longer. And that is your Jing. The Chinese say that we're born with 100 years of Jing, and how we live our lives may add or take away from it. There's different perspectives around Jing, but that is one of the major ones. So if you look at how the world is going today, people burning the candle at both ends, they're going on stimulants or go, go, go. They don't sleep enough. They don't make sleep a priority. They are looking into blue light way more than they should be. This is definitely going to discharge that battery and deplete Jing, and they will have a shorter, less healthy life. And then the Shen is the brilliance. It's the light coming off that candle. And Shen is basically your personality, your emotional health, your spirit. So all of these aspects make up who we are, and they all need to be nourished. And each one, when you nourish each one, they will affect the other areas and they will support each other. So right now, winter, time to build Jing. And we'll talk about what it looks like in a little bit, what it looks like when we're depleted of Jing, and what are the signs when our Jing stores are low. So it's our life battery, maybe thought of as our reserves of life force. It's believed to govern courage, fuels sexuality, and makes reproduction possible. So a lot of times when I have people coming to me with fertility issues, the first thing that I go to is getting basic nutrition and then getting the Jing building tonics into their diets, because that's often, and of course, detoxification, because we have so many endocrine disruptors and hormone mimickers and things like that. So that's obviously something that we can't ignore, but building the Jing essence is really important. So bringing Jing building herbs into their diets, a great way to help restore the ability to reproduce, because instead of going straight to the fertility clinic, we need to look at why we cannot support that basic function of perpetuation of the species, right? Like it's really important to be able to reproduce. And if we can't, rather than just taking it for granted that, oh, well, this guy's going to help me and it's not my problem, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity symptom, like all these other symptoms, that's telling you, it's information that there's something that you need to pay attention to. And so this is one of the best ways to go, in my opinion. So the areas that are governed by the kidneys are fundamentally affected by the aging process. So what this means is, for example, all the things when we think of poor aging, aging problems, this stuff is all governed by the kidneys. So this gives you a big clue that paying attention to the kidneys, rebuilding the Jing, nourishing the kidneys are going to help reverse or slow down a lot of these processes that are causing early aging or uncomfortable aging. So things like low energy, declining hormone levels, big, whatever stage of life that you're in. One of the products I'm going to be talking about today is Elk Velvet Antler. And I just had a woman say, I think this is reducing my hot flashes. For other people, it restored their fertility. So I'm talking about women here, but for men, it's also an important herb as well if they're having erectile difficulties, things like that. So very, very nourishing, very nutritive, and very building. So declining hormone levels, impaired brain function, bone weakness. So from a Chinese medicine perspective, the liver has to do with the joints, and the kidneys have to do with the bones and bone density. So very important to maintain that Jing, to maintain strong bones. Hearing loss, like I said before, loose teeth. So your dental health in general, really much associated with that, with the kidneys and Jing. Weakened immunity, incontinence. Of course, we've got the bladder in there. So if the bladder is weak, then we're not going to be continent. Tissue dryness. So those are just a few things. We have also things like sore knees, low back pain. Those are some things also. Early premature graying of the hair. These are all signs of depleted Jing, right? And things that we associate with aging, these aches and pains or hair going gray, that kind of thing. So when the kidneys are weak, what could that possibly look like? So things like so I'm just going to reiterate again, but these are things to look for, because we don't really think about these things from a kidney perspective. That's certainly not what Western doctors are trained as, and even naturopathic doctors, unless they have some knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine, they won't look to these areas. And integrative doctors also won't be looking to these areas. So sometimes we have to take a look at something that's, because this ear is actually connected to the kidney, but our doctors will say that they're not, right? But there is, nothing is separate. So poor hearing, tinnitus, ear infections, osteoporosis, dental issues, as I said, developmental issues. So the ability to grow, to reproduce, to build new tissue and bone and heal. These are all Jing things. Infertility, panic attacks, anxiety, fear, paranoia. That right now is something. So I work at a shop a couple days a week in Calgary, and the amount of anxiety, the amount of fear, the amount of unease, and what really concerns me is the amount of children experiencing these types of emotions is really alarming. And people are not resilient and they're not robust and they aren't able to adapt to these times. And it's really coming out. I would say anxiety. I haven't heard so much about anxiety ever. And I've been working in this field for a long time. Sore lower back, sore knees, like I said, premature. Oh, I think that's supposed to say graying. So premature graying. Also fear, grudges, jealousy. These are traits that we don't necessarily want to see in ourselves. And sometimes these things can affect our physical being, like our kidneys. But the thing is also when we nourish these things, all of a sudden it becomes more effortless to maybe change some of these traits that we want to see changed or we didn't recognize are things that we've been putting out there. So let's talk about winter. What is winter a time for? So again, this is a time that I really encourage you to look at. Do you adjust your life for the seasons? Is that something that you pay attention to? I mean, of course, you have to put warm clothes on and, with some winter boots and shovel the sidewalk and things like that. But I'm talking more about the timing of your life, the rhythm of your life. Do you change things up? So like I said before, it's the most yin season. It's dark, it's cold, it's slow. It's time for that inward contemplation, right? Where the summer, the height of summer is the most yang and it's hot and it's good, it's vibrant and it's energetic. And, you can get away with less sleep. You can get away with eating later on in the day. But in the wintertime, it's time to slow down. And if you do that, if you do take that time for that quiet contemplation and slowing down, it's also just in doing that is going to help to rebuild and recharge your batteries, right? Especially in this part of the world where we're living. It's a time to strengthen and tone the kidneys. So how are you going to do this? You're going to do this by going to bed earlier and sleeping a little bit later. So if you have to still get up at the same time every day, then I really strongly encourage you to get to bed earlier than you would perhaps in the summertime. So I know this year in particular, I have really needed to sleep more. My alarm goes off at 7. I try to let it go off at 5:30 or 6 in the summertime. But even these days, if I can get away with a little bit more, I will sleep in a little bit longer. I've really noticed it this year. And I think it just might be because of the heaviness, the weight of the world. And so for me, I'm really making sure that I minimally get 8 hours of sleep pretty much every night, sometimes a little bit more. So yeah, so that's something. And that's the time that we're healing, repairing, rejuvenating, right? And it's time to have no phones and electronics in the bedroom. Even you can even turn the breaker off for more restorative sleep, and you can turn your Wi-Fi off for more restorative sleep too. This is something that we do every single night. So really to take advantage of that one block of time that we are healing and restoring, then make that environment as conducive to healing as physically possible. So getting rid of unnecessary electronics, unnecessary light, unnecessary EMF radiation is something that I strongly recommend. No TV in the bedroom. No TV. Okay, slow down and feed yourself physically and spiritually. So breathing, like hobbies that you like to, like for me, my knitting, it just nourishes me. It's my meditation, it's my creation, it's function, it's fashion. To me, it's just time well spent. I really, really, really enjoy that. So feed yourself both physically and spiritually. So eating the right foods, we'll talk about that as well. But think about what is it that you want to birth in the summertime? What is it that you want to bring to the world this year? Who are you really besides the job that you do or the role that you play in the household? Who are you on top of all of those other things that we use to describe you? So look inward, reflect, meditate, write, Tai Chi, Qigong. All of those things are really nourishing and building and restoring. That's what this is time for. So let's look at eating in the wintertime. So keto is a very popular fad these days. I don't hear about it as much, but it sure is a selling trade. All sorts of products out there are keto approved. But keto is not necessarily a lifestyle. Nothing is really a lifestyle because I very much encourage you to eat seasonally. So not much growing around Red Deer right now, is there? Not in Calgary either. But what did we harvest in the fall, and what have we stored? What have we fermented, right? And we also have to look at the temperature of the food. So we harvested grains in the fall and root vegetables in the fall. And once upon a time, we would have a root cellar full of our apples and our potatoes and our beets and our whatever other starchy root vegetables. And we would have grains and we would be baking bread and we would be doing things like that. And, grains have gotten a really bad rap lately, but if you choose to eat those seasonally and prepare them properly, it's about the preparation, not just the thing, and the quality of the source, then you might find that it actually works quite well for you. So for me, sourdough bread, that's the way. I grind my fresh organic grain and then I bake, and then I make it like a 3-day sourdough and bake it on the 3rd day. But I only do that in the colder months. I don't do that in the summertime. Something that we don't do around here in my family anyways. So we want cooked foods. We want warming foods. I personally do not look at salad in the wintertime. I don't even think about it, but I grow a ton of lettuce in the spring and summer, later spring and early summer. And that's when I just can't get enough of it. But it's very cooling. It's very hard to digest. It'll really quench the fire of your digestion. So it's very important to have those warm foods. They're easier to digest, but they also have that warming quality so that you will be more robust to the cooler temperatures of the wintertime. Once upon a time, I was a vegan and I was living on my own and I didn't cook a lot. I actually had a lot of salads and things like that for lunch. And I was working at a petrochemicals company of all places for quite a long time. Thank goodness that's in the past. And I would eat my, my big hearty salad for lunch, and I'd be so cold all the time. And I would actually, unbeknownst to most people, I'd be all bloated and gassy and uncomfortable. And I didn't understand the principles. Now that makes complete and total sense to me. And people are like, oh, you need to eat meat and you need to do this. And I thought, what do you know? I'm the healthiest eater around here. You guys have no idea. You don't even know what the word organic means or GMO means. But that being said, there was some truth to what they were saying because I was not eating something that would allow me to thrive in the wintertime. I didn't necessarily need to eat meat, which I do now, but a nice stew or a soup would have been a lot more seasonally appropriate than those salads that I was eating. I would have been more comfortable in my digestive area and I would have been warmer as well. So bone broth, really excellent thing to do. Save all those bones, put them in the freezer until you're ready to make a broth or buy bone broth or buy the bones or whatever you want to do, but very, very nourishing. Use it as the base of cooking your grains, cooking your soups and your stews, even putting it, if you're in a little bit of a saute, making stir fries and sauces, whatever. Bone broth, a wonderful, wonderful food that has come back lately, which is great to see. So the black foods like black sesame, black beans, kidney beans, black rice, elderberry, these are very nourishing foods and they're really Jing building. So anytime there's a black version of the food, if you can choose that, then choose that food. That's going to be a lot more nourishing for you. Black, I don't eat a lot of chia in the wintertime, but I do eat some chia. And so the black chia over the regular chia, like there's all of those things. The darker version doesn't mean you have to, but that's going to give you more Jing support. Slow cooked beef and lamb is something that's recommended from the Chinese medicine perspective. And salt. Salty is the flavor. Salt, but don't overdo it. But for me, I put salt in my water. It hydrates me so much better. Speaking of which, I'm going to take a quick sip right now. But also salty condiments like miso, have a little bit of seaweed in there, tamari. These are all great things to add into your cooking. Then we have some other foods to include things like squash and grains and potatoes and root veg and winter greens. So the kale, the hardier greens, not the lettuce that with the first little frost, they're toast. Carrots, cabbage, lots of sauerkraut. I make 100 pounds of sauerkraut every fall personally. And that is, if for whatever reason you don't have any fresh vegetables to serve with dinner, you can always put a big scoop of kraut on the side of your plate and use that as, one of your as your vegetable. Mushrooms, apples, pears. So apples are the ones that really store. So earlier on the pears and the apples are going to store for much longer. Nuts, meat, eggs, fermented foods, and fats. So you'll see a lot of these foods are more, you think of them more as building, nourishing, grounding foods. And this is what we're supposed to be doing. Because once upon a time in this part of the world, we would have to eat a bit more in the winter because there'd be lean times coming in the spring. Right now, we don't go through that anymore. But, that would be the time to actually, people would naturally go keto because they would be fasting for long periods because there wasn't much available. So they would be going off their stores that they had in the wintertime. And it was a really great way to keep our health in check for other reasons for the fasting. But it is the time to really build, right? Time to build. So pungent flavors are also important. So these are things that are also going to strengthen digestion: dill and cardamom and ginger and cayenne and garlic. I love making this appley breakfast. And I know Rebecca does that too. And I put cinnamon and ginger and cardamom with apples and raisins and sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds. And I simmer it in coconut milk. And then I add in sprouted chin flax. And it's like a big pudding, not a pudding, but like an oatmeal. And it's just, I love it. Had that today, actually. Love that. So I love those warming spices. They're really helping to support the digestion. Things like chai teas, digestive teas. Think of those kinds of things to really support that digestion. You want to also finish meals earlier in the day. You don't want to be having a late night snack. And the thing is a major organ of digestion is the liver. And the liver time is liver gallbladder time goes from 11 to 3. And you need some time for all that digesting to finish before you go to bed. And since you're going to bed earlier, right? You're going to bed earlier, then you want to be finishing sooner because it's no fun to go to bed on a full stomach. So you really want to give it some time. So Derek, for example, of New Earth Organics, he tries to eat, or he does eat with the light cycle. So once dark has arrived, then it's time to eat, to stop eating. So now at the end of February, it is very noticeably lighter for a long time. So you can stand that out a little bit. But, in the peak of winter, you could try stopping eating at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and see how you feel. Because for a lot of people, if they would spend more time not eating and eat when they eat, but don't eat for a longer constant block of time, a lot of things will heal themselves because your body has more time in that healing and repairing state. And it's resetting that circadian rhythm. Because once upon a time, we weren't used to eating all day long and snacking all day long and then eating into the night and getting up for midnight snack or having a late snack in front of the TV late at night, right? That's just not what we used to do. We had a very long block of time where the body didn't have to digest anymore and it could focus inward on that healing, repairing, and rejuvenation. Okay, so the tonic herbs, this is what we're here for, right? So let's talk about the tonic herbs. And these are the herbs that are really restorative and really building. And some of them are very appropriate all around. And I didn't bring all the herbs in that could be appropriate right now, but some really heavy hitters that can be very helpful. And one of the ones that I prefer right now is reishi and reishi spores. And reishi spores, I find, is actually, they're selling way more, even more than they used to. That is my favorite. So you got the reishi mushroom, which is that fruiting body of the mushroom, but the spore is that small seed that, it'll sporulate when it wants to reproduce. So it can set down, more reishi somewhere else. And the spores are anywhere from 70 to 200 times more potent than the reishi mushroom itself. So you could use reishi. I'm a big fan of the spores. I like taking just a little bit and giving myself that little Jing support every day. But the spores, because they're so concentrated, because people are so anxious, or they have such a busy mind, or they have such problems sleeping, that is the one that I find people see more results more quickly. So the reishi spores from New Earth Organics are one of my go-tos at all time. of all time. And I have seen people, when I see people, for example, we had somebody staying with us a while back who had a very unnerving experience in his home. And he's very paranoid. And he asked if he could stay with us for a couple of days. He just couldn't be at home. And I sat him down and he had a chat with my husband. I made kombucha and I put a little shot of reishi spores, just mixed that up and gave that to him to drink. And a couple hours later, he's like, it's exactly what I needed. Thank you. It really, really calmed him. So if you have a really busy monkey mind, you need to slow that down. If you're having trouble sleeping, if you're feeling very anxious, not that you have to feel that way, because I don't feel that way, but I just know the replenishing that it's doing for me every day when I take it in small doses. And that's the beauty of tonic herbs, right? They're safe to take every day for the long term. And that little bit of chemistry every day is going to really support long-term health and wellness. That's what I love about the tonic herbs, is that long-term vision. It's not, oh dear, this is the problem right now, let's fix it right now. It's like, how about we don't wait for a problem to arise? We just have a little bit of this all day long. So you're better prepared to deal with something that comes up, but hopefully it'll extend into a longer, healthier, happier life. And the thing with the mushrooms is they contain chemistry that activate circulating compounds of the immune system, and different mushrooms they activate different components of our immune system. So if you have that chemistry circulating all the time, then you are going to support a really strong, robust immune system on top of other things. So reishi is one of the top anti-aging herbs to support our foundational energy. It's the stress, the sleep, and the anxiety mushroom. And a lot of people these days, when I say those three words, are like, oh, that sounds like me. But it's also one that's going to nourish your heart. It's one that's going to nourish your kidneys. It's going to nourish your liver. It's going to nourish your brain. It's kind of that D, all of the above mushroom. So if you want to just do one single mushroom, you can do reishi, or doing a blend is always good as well, or layering the reishi with a blend. But right now, considering, who was I talking to the other day, and she was dealing with heart problems. She was feeling really depleted. She couldn't sleep. She was phlegmy. Is also traditionally used to disperse phlegm and suppress that, not suppress the cough, but clear that cough reflex. And so for her, it was like, reishi's your mushroom all the way, girl. And so I'm waiting to hear back on that. So it supports all aspects of cardiovascular health, so liver health, and it's very kidney protective. It also has a role in blood sugar control, which is really important. We have a lot of wonky blood sugar these days, and that leads to cardiovascular issues, of course, diabetes, mood swings, fatigue and energy swings, all sorts of things. And also immunomodulator. And this is the wonderful thing about all the medicinal mushrooms, is they won't just elevate your immune system or boost your immune system, which we don't necessarily want to do. We want the intelligence of the mushrooms to modulate the immune system and use those boosters in just those short, acute situations and not be boosting all the time. This way, that's what I love about mushrooms. They'll have on all of you, these mushrooms will have a different result than it will on me, because there's that intelligence of our bodies combined with the mushroom, giving our bodies what they need at the time that we need it. So it's going to look a little bit different for every person. They're also useful for gastric ulcers, bacterial and viral infections. So reishi mushroom, a really great mushroom, but it's really restorative of that Jing essence, especially the spores, actually. So for me, one of my faves for sure. And this is the thing, it's not a mushroom, but the Hashiwu, it's a root. And this is the product that I really love pairing my spores with. Those are the two that I have all the time. Hashiwu really saved me many, many years ago when I was in a very stressful time and my hair was like ejecting from my head. It's like every day when I had a shower, it was like I had a brush full of hair that I was just coming out and was just putting on the shower wall. And then I realized I'm not doing what I tell everybody else to do. And so I started taking Hashiwu. I started taking 2 teaspoons a day, 2 rounded teaspoons a day at that time. Within a week, done. And I've had several people with the same result. So Hashiwu is that deep restorative herb. And it's really going to put back what life has taken out. And it's very much known for maintaining hair color and maintaining hair in the head. But I've also had one customer saying my hair's curly again. It hasn't been curly since I was a teenager. Another one, she was having crazy amounts of it, but her hair was just so thick again. She had like all this hair. So when we're losing our hair and we're graying early, right, that is a sign of depleted Jing stores. So the Hashiwu, one of my faves, it quickly replenishes Jing for those who've abused themselves or have lost Jing due to chronic or excessive stress, burning the candles at both ends, multiple pregnancies in close proximity. This is one of my favorite products to give postpartum to women, or to women that feel like they just never recovered after their pregnancies. I love it. And I've had 2 or 3 women call it their rocket fuel. It's been amazing for many, many people, but also, mamas after having your babies, because to build a baby in your body is Jing depleting. They are taking from you, especially now where we don't have traditions of really building the body pre-pregnancy and restoring and building the body post-pregnancy, where in traditional cultures, this is what they did. So there weren't, they didn't have the postpartum depression like we do, or just the fatigue and the weariness, which is common in the Western world. Hashiwu also contains a still being glycoside, which is chemistry similar to resveratrol, but way more potent. So about a teaspoon in Hashiwu is about equivalent to what you would get in 80 glasses of wine. So it has very strong antioxidant properties. It prevents premature aging. And it's the greatest ability of all plants to concentrate qi from the earth. So it's collecting that qi, that energy from the earth. And when you really build that qi, that excessive qi can be stored as Jing. This is how you build back, how you really build back better. So it's an energy tonic, it's calming, and it energizes the nervous system. So I just got some very interesting feedback. I taught a class last week, and a customer bought a bunch of stuff. She's going through a very difficult time right now. And she got some Hashiwu, she got some spores, she got a few other things. And she put the Hashiwu in her breakfast the next day, and she messaged me and she said, wow, that stuff is powerful. She said she went into this, and I've never had feedback like this. She had the Hashiwu in her breakfast, and after that, she did a meditation. She said she went so deep, it was surreal. So very interesting feedback from that perspective. I haven't heard that. I have another woman that I recommended the Hashiwu to. And then the next time I saw her, I was at a store, and there were like 3 or 4 bags in her car. I was like, you're buying one for everybody in the family? And she says, no, I'm going through a bag a week, which I would not recommend. Let's be clear. But she was going through a bag a week. And she said at 40 minutes after taking it for the first time, it helped her more than anything did in 3 years of trying to restore her adrenals and her energy and, just get back to life, because she had really burnt herself out. So I said, I think that's too much. And she said, no, I've looked it up. I've looked at the, the levels of what would be harmful. And she's going to do that for 1 more month. And there she goes. She felt a lot better. So lots of great stories like that. I love hearing stories. So that's the Hashiwu. Cordyceps. So we're going to go through, I think, 3 more. So the Cordyceps, Reishi and Cordyceps are an amazing combo for stress, for energy. Reishi is that one that chills you out, helps you not overreact, react, I guess, and helps you respond to whatever's going on, whether it be in your family life, or maybe something happening in traffic, or a problem at work, or whatever it may be. It helps you respond rather than react. Whereas Cordyceps gives you that strength to just stand up. It's an amazing lung tonic, and it's a chi tonic. So it gives you more energy throughout the day, but it's also an amazing kidney tonic. So it's really good for restoring Jing and building that Jing energy and extending life. And it's very much known for its reproductive, like when it comes to reproductive issues in terms of reproductive health, but libido. And libido is very much a measure of your Jing stores and your resilience. So Cordyceps is very well known to help with that sex drive, but also the reproductive capacity. So it's one that is very popular among athletes and sports performance, but also often if you're seeing a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, you're going for acupuncture, something like that, and your energy in your kidneys is showing up low, then Cordyceps is often one that they will recommend for you. Also, I do have it listed there. It's the autoimmune thyroid conditions. If any of you have Hashimoto's, the Cordyceps has been shown to reduce antibodies. This one study showed within 6 months a reduction of antibodies by 50%. So I'm pretty sure there's not a pharmaceutical out there that's doing that for you. So of course, when you're dealing with any kind of autoimmune condition, you have to look at whole body health. Have to look at gut health and digestion and inflammation, but cordyceps also very, very helpful in that role. It builds physical power and mental energy. Really good. Like these things are the real restorers, the rebuilders. Increases cellular ATP. So adenosine triphosphate, that's what you use for energy. So cordyceps, if you're feeling you're really lacking in energy, then the cordyceps is definitely one that you want to look into. Also, if you have any kind of lung issues, like you have asthma, COPD, things like that, you just can't oxygenate as much. Cordyceps is a really big one for that. So it's known for giving or increasing vitality and longevity. And there are studies that show it's very useful in chronic kidney disease. So of course, building the kidney Jing, but physically supporting the kidneys as well. So right now we have that in our Vital Essence line. So I'm just going to tell you quickly, we have two lines. We have our New Earth Organics line and we have the Vital Essence line. And the Vital Essence line mushrooms are fruiting body only. So there's no mycelium, that network under the ground. It's fruiting body. They're wild and they're extracts. So they don't have the fiber in there. They're the extract powders. So you use less because they're greater potency, but they will also dissolve. Whereas the New Earth Organics mushrooms are whole food activated mushrooms. Nothing's been added or taken away. They've just had the cell wall cracked so that you actually can access the nutrition contained within that cell wall, because we don't really have the ability to break down that cell wall within our own digestive system. So they are cracked cell wall, and then they're grown on brown rice, but that is fermented down to get rid of all that. So it's all the mushroom, all the chemistry in the mushroom, but the fiber in that mushroom is well known to increase a diverse microbiome. And in a time where there is literally a war on microbes and all the things that we cannot see, in a world where we've also had the greatest research on studying the microbes in the last decade or so, we know now that we are less human than we are everything else within us, all the little microbes in us. We have way less genetic material from our own human cells than we do from the yeast, the bacteria in our body. And they're very, very important parts of us on a physical, mental, emotional level. And so anytime that we can diversify, modern life is very much narrowing everything. There's not as many choices of food. There's not as many choices, like all the cars are starting to look the same. There's the microbes. We're like sanitizing everything. What is this actually doing is this really helping us? Because when they study more native people living on their native lands, their microbes are way, way, way more diverse than ours are. And they also tend to have correlating much better mental, emotional, physical health. So that's the fiber that's in the mushrooms are providing you with support for creating a good, diverse microbiome. So that's the cordyceps. And then we have two more. So I want to talk about Elk Velvet Antler. If you want something that's really, really going to help restore you. So I knew somebody a while back who was having an old injury crop up, and she was leaving to go traveling. So obviously this was a while ago, and she was wearing a brace on her foot. She had to wear her brother's shoe because she couldn't fit her own shoe. And it was an old broken bone that had acted up. And she said, what can I do? I gave her Elk Velvet Antler and colostrum. And within days, she came back, she said, oh my God, thank you so much. That is already so much better. I can walk on it. I can heal. And then she ended up going on her trip very soon thereafter with no brace, with no bandage, with no funny shoe, anything like that. These things really help heal. I don't have colostrum in this presentation, but that's another really big healer. But the Elk Velvet Antler is coming from the antler in the velvet stage. It's very sustainably and ethically harvested, of course. It's a fundamental tonic herb in traditional Chinese medicine, deer antler and Elk Velvet Antler. Now, these are quite yang. The next two are going to be, they're quite yang products, cordyceps as well. So sometimes if you're running hot, if you feel like this is giving you headaches or it's causing maybe increased blood pressure, which certain things, if you tend to be on the hotter side, then you want to make sure you're balancing out with the yin tonics like Hashiwu. So that would be a really good combo. because you can't, that's what Chinese medicine is all about too. It's that balance of the yin and the yang. So taking into account we're in the most yin season, we want to get those yang tonics in there to warm us up. But if we tend to have a constitution that's very hot, then that might not best serve us unless we have a more balanced combination that has both yin and yang qualities to it. So what does it contain? It contains lots of stuff, but some of the things are collagen. There's actual collagen in the antler, lipids, so fats, chondroitin, glucosamine, hyaluronic acid, key things that we take and we take all apart and then we put them all back together into capsules. So this is all there in its whole form in the antler itself. Growth factors and growth hormone and minerals and pantocrine, which is an extract from the Elk Velvet Antler that helps build lean muscle, improves reproduction, it's anti-aging, helps with mental alertness. So if you think about how fast the antlers grow and what's involved with that, and that they do that every single year, just think about what that can do for the body. So whether you have joint issues, whether you have mood imbalances, I was talking to a woman the other day and she was saying that it's really helping her with her hot flashes. So it helps men with erectile difficulties. It helps women with their fertility. I was talking to a woman today whose husband takes it for headaches and she took it for her joints, I believe. So it was giving them different results. I was listening to a thing the other day and one guy was saying, it was like, half an hour later, it was like he had, what are those drinks called? I don't even know what they're called. Those energy drinks. I'll think of it. If I don't, that's fine. But all these energy drinks that are full of caffeine. Well, what if you could do something like that from a natural substance that is not only won't give you the crash, but it's also going to nourish you and actually physically help heal you or help your body to heal and give your body the information and the nutrients that it needs to do the healing. Because really, the Elk Velvet Antler isn't doing the healing. It needs the body and needs the wisdom of the body and it needs that interaction of the body to heal. So the body's really doing all the work. So it's very protective, it's curative, it's revitalizing. It supports muscles, the bones, the nerves, the connective, which should have an E on the end, tissue, the endocrine system. So again, a really, really rejuvenating tonic. It's really, really powerful. And people that have had, they've been in accidents and they need to heal. They've had surgery, they have injuries. I think now due to some of the chemistry in there, the professional sports can't do it, but sports athletes can't take it. But I know back in the day, it was used by certain athletes and it would give them tremendous healing capacities and just healing way faster than was expected. So the Elk Velvet Antler, a really, really great one. And then we have, lastly, that I want to talk about today is pine pollen. So I wanted to choose something from the animal world, something from the mushroom world, something from the plant world. So the pine pollen is a very unique pollen because it contains bioidentical hormones in it. Pine pollen and pollens in general are amazing foods because they're so nutrient dense that you can live off of them for some time. So you've got minerals, essential fatty acids, vitamins, antioxidants, other structures in there. The thing with our pollens is they're 99% digestible because they have had their cell wall cracked. We do not have the capacity to digest that plant cell wall that contains all the nutrition within. So it's harvested within a 3 to 4 day window, right? Once that pine pollen is ready to go, you got to take advantage of it. And then it's cell wall cracked. It is highly, highly digestible. So for some people, pollen is a real irritant and it's a real problem. But if you can consume it and accessing all the nutrients inside, for some people, it takes away the sensitivity for when the pollen starts flying in the spring. So something to think about and something to try. It's rich in amino acids, minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, contains over 200 active compounds. It contains bioidentical hormones such as DHEA, testosterone, and androsterone. So again, hormone regular. So again, from that, the Jing tonics are really going to affect the endocrine system. So whether that's going to impact your reproductive system, whether that could impact your weight, it can impact your mood, it impacts the quality and the strength of your bones, the suppleness and the texture and look of your skin. it has a huge impact on all of these things. And the thing is when you take foods in the form of whole food forms in nature, where it's not one isolated compound that you're taking separately from everything else, it's much safer that way. It can be very effective, but it's going to give you the balance of all the other things that nature decided that should be together. Because we try to improve upon nature by finding one active component. But what if it's not one active component? Sure, it looks like it might be this, but we don't know the synergy that we've lost from replicating something or isolating something. So when you've got these hundreds of compounds together, that to me is quite ingenious, and I prefer to keep it that way personally. So it supplements the hormones depleted by stress and other imbalances, DNA protective, deeply restorative, and it promotes liver activity, normals bile secretion. So the pollens are really great for as we go into the season of spring and liver season. I really encourage people to get on the pollens because it's really supportive also for the liver, for allergies, for bile. And one of the biggest problems with digestion and the most popular, one of the most popular abdominal surgeries is the removal of the gallbladder. Wow. What if we just paid attention to our livers a little bit more, made sure that where our bile was flowing by eating bitter foods, getting the right fats in there, getting some choline in there, all these things. Oh, and there is choline. There's choline in the pine pollen as well, which helps support the liver as well, because the choline is the mechanism by which fat is transported out of the liver. It needs that choline. So that's in pine pollen, that's in Hashiwu, that's in egg yolks that haven't been fully cooked, so they're not all dry. That's in a few things. It's in liver itself as well. So really important nutrient in there. So that's the last one I wanted to talk to you about today. It has quite a piney taste. We have different pollens. We have the lotus pollen, which I recommend in the summer, green tea pollen, which I like the pine pollen in the winter, the green tea pollen in the spring, the lotus pollen in the summer. But again, it's up to you. It's up to your constitution. It's up to what's going on in your life. And then you also look at the season. That's the way that I decide what I'm going to bring into my world tonic herb wise. So I hope that helps. Again, if you have any questions, you can email me at sascha@newearthorganics.com. Be happy to answer any questions. And hopefully one day I'll be up there to do a class again. And in the meantime, stay well, enjoy the rest of your class, and maybe we'll do this again sometime. All right, guys, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.